super fun, and all about artisan cheese and more to melt your peaceful heart and toast your peaceful life. Coming to you from the Appalachian Mountains of southwestern Virginia, this is the Peaceful Heart FarmCast.
Hey, this is Scott Hall from Peaceful Heart Farm, and you are listening to the Peaceful Heart FarmCast.
Hello, everybody. Melanie Hall here. Hope you are doing very, very well. The conversation today and every day revolves around the value of tradition, traditional homestead living, traditional raw milk products, and artisan cheese. Topics discussed here are designed to create new perspectives and possibilities for how you might add the taste of tradition to your life. Canning tomatoes is the name of the game this week. I have about 150 pounds of tomatoes picked so far. I think I will only be canning about 50 or 60 pounds of them between today and tomorrow. Some of them are still quite green. We shall see how it goes. I want to take a minute and say welcome to all the new listeners. Welcome back to the veteran homestead-loving regulars who stop by the FarmCast for every episode. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you, thank you. I'm so excited to share with you what's going on at the homestead this week. There's so much going on right now. It's harvest time in the garden. Not just the tomatoes, though that is the big one. However, I'm going to start with the creamery and animals and then finish up with the garden updates. So as far as the creamery goes, Scott is actually taking a little bit of a break from working on the creamery. He finally got the entire project dried in. The next big event will be putting on the metal roof, and that will happen later. And in the meantime, he's using his time right now to clean up the construction mess, tidying up the property in general, and so on. So mowing the fields is also happening, cleaning up the grass in the orchard and garden area got done. And just general cleaning everywhere. It makes the building look so much nicer when the grass is cut and the scrap wood's gathered up and hauled off. Reorganization of supplies and tools also helps. And then there's helping me with various garden projects. I can't turn that down. What a blessing he is when lending a hand in the garden, among so many other things. Now let me talk about the cows. Yet again, we had the ag tech out for artificial insemination purposes. Will it ever end? Violet showed signs of coming into heat yet again. And, well, she's taken care of yet again. And now we wait another 3 weeks to see if it took this time. The calves are getting fat. They get 2 gallons of milk per day. I like to spoil them. Wendell's big enough to live on grass alone, but I keep giving him the milk. He would push Virginia out of the way if I did not. He's quite committed to getting his twice daily rations of milk. So if he was just nursing on his mom, they would go maybe at least 6 months. So I'm okay. I keep giving him milk, even though his rumen is developed enough that he could just live on grass at this point. Now, several goats have had to have their heads removed from the fence yet again. It seems that every time they get access to a new area of pasture, they have to experiment with eating the grass on the other side of the fence. Nope, the new grass is just not good enough for them. And some of them just never seem to learn that sticking their head with horns through the fence will get them caught. Then Scott or I have to come along and turn their heads just the right way. And of course, they're wiggling and fighting the whole time. Let go of my head and my horns. But we eventually get their horns back through there and they take off running. Goats. Blue herons. We have a pair of blue herons on the big pond now. For the longest time, there was only one, and now there is a pair. Have you ever seen a blue heron? They are majestic and graceful in flight. I love watching them. I've heard that when you have blue herons on your pond, it indicates that the pond is healthy. So I guess we have a really healthy pond, and we certainly have those beautiful blue herons. I just see them more and more every day. Now, as far as the quail go, I am very pleased with how our quail operation is progressing. The hens are in full production with laying their eggs. I have 15 hens and get 15 eggs nearly every day. And the incubator is humming along again. Today, the eggs in there are 1 week old. This process is so exciting. We have an entire life cycle operating quite efficiently with this quail operation. It's the one place on the homestead where everything is going smoothly at the moment. Perhaps I need to knock on wood now. I may have just jinxed them. But we love the quail. And we love the donkeys. I'm thinking the donkeys are just about ready for another hoof trimming. They really don't like it so much. Daisy and Sweet Pea will stand still while it's going on, but they really only come up for their trimming because of the sweet feed. And then, of course, Johnny and Coco, they're a little bit more hard to work with. They really don't like it, but they're getting better. They're getting better. The donkeys are the friendliest of animals, and we love our crew. Let me pass on a bit of trivia regarding the donkeys. Did you know that they all have a cross on their backs? And there are a couple of Christian legends that say it is a gift our Lord gave to the humble donkey that carried him into Jerusalem. They are similar stories, but not the same. According to one legend, the little donkey so loved his master that he followed him to Calvary. Grief-stricken at the sight, he turned away, but remained at his station at the foot of the cross, and the shadow of the cross fell upon him, and from that day all purebred donkeys wear the Master's cross on their back. Another story recounts that when Jesus was carrying his cross to the mount, the little donkey tried to help him, but couldn't get through the crowd. And when the crowd dispersed, the donkey went up to Jesus and stood behind the cross. And again, the sun went down, the shadow of the cross fell across the donkey, and now every donkey has the cross. So, and according to a theology lecture at the University of Notre Dame, the tales never actually happened in the Bible. Other facts about donkeys and the Bible is it is the only animal in the Bible other than the serpent to speak, and it plays a significant role in more than one Christian prophecy. The prophecy of Zechariah comes to mind. So that's my little donkey story for today. In the garden, we have some beautiful sunflowers. I hope to harvest them in the next couple of days. The really big ones are bending over the stalks. What is happening right now is the seeds are forming. So you have the yellow petals around the outside, but then there are small blooms all on the inside, and that's where all the seeds form in the center there. And so once those little blooms are done, the seeds are there and they get bigger and bigger, and that makes those giant heads really heavy, and thus the bending over. And the harvest can be tricky once the seeds become fully ripe, because shaking the plant in any way can cause the seeds to come loose. So Scott and I have a plan to work on them together. I will hold the stalk up higher, while lower down Scott cuts through close to the ground. So we're cutting the entire stalk off, and some of these are 12 foot high. And then I will gently lower the stalk to the ground, and at that point then we'll go up and just cut off 2 or 3 feet of the stalk with the flower. And then those with like a short handle there, they will get tied together in bundles of 3 and hung up to complete the drying process. And the birds are going to be really happy this winter, but we need to get them harvested or the birds are going to eat them right where they are out there in the garden. So we need to get those down and dried. Now the beans, let me talk about the beans. I've harvested the black beans. They're a dried bean, the dried black beans, and we use them in the Mexican dishes. And perhaps I already mentioned that last week I had harvested them. Still to harvest are the small red Mexican beans. So if you've ever had red beans and rice, they're a little small red bean. That's what I'm growing. And then I also have white kidney beans. And those are also, again, a dried bean. So you just let them grow until the pod dries. And then I'm just going to pull up the plants and pull all the pods off. And yeah, then all will need to be shelled out. That's a fun project that Scott and I will do together while watching Amazon Prime Originals in the evening. I also picked the baby lima beans. The green ones I cooked and we ate them days ago. But there are also dried lima beans, and those will need to be shelled out as well. So all of these dried beans, they will be used to plant again next year. So you can eat them, but you're also using them for your seed for your next crop. The peppers. I made a really neat string of cayenne peppers and hung it up to dry. So they're the red cayenne peppers, 3 or 4 inch long cayenne peppers, just a whole string of them. And that's all you have to do is hang them up. I probably need to put them more in a sunny location than where they are right now, but they'll just dry right there in the pod. And then I can do a couple of things with them. I might powder them up to make my own cayenne pepper seasoning. And I can chop them up into flakes and just kind of pound them. They'll be dry and they'll kind of flake, and then roast them in the oven, and that adds a kind of nutty flavor to them. And then, you just toss them into soups and stir fries and so on. You use them as you would store-bought stuff, dry red pepper flakes. And using your homemade seasonings is very satisfying. You could put a cayenne pepper plant out on your apartment balcony and have a ton of cayenne peppers. Just saying. The hot cherry peppers are producing like crazy. I have so many of these lovely peppers, and they're not too terribly hot, unlike the serrano peppers that I have. The serrano peppers are the hottest ones that I'm growing this year. My jalapenos are actually quite mild. In fact, I made some pickled hot peppers, and I was informed by a customer that he was quite disappointed. They simply were not hot. So next time I make a batch, I'll add more serrano peppers to the mix and fewer jalapenos because, as I said, the jalapenos are a bit mild this year, and the serrano peppers, of course, are going to be hotter. In the meantime, I'm going to need to relabel the pickled hot peppers. Or what should I call them? I don't know, probably just pickled peppers. Mixed pickled peppers. I finished drying in the dehydrator a batch of sweet bell peppers. I had 2 trays of green and 1 of red. Right now, I have a few more green ones that are turning red. I'm ripening them in a window, and I hope to have lots more of these green peppers for cooking throughout the winter and spring once I have them dried. Again, you just toss a handful of those in there into your soup, or you could even just toss them into some water, warm water, do a really warm water, toss them in there, give them like 5, 10, 15 minutes, and they'll rehydrate. You can, put them in your omelets and stir fries or whatever. Scott has prepared the potato beds for the next planting. I'm not sure. It may be too late in the season for fall potatoes, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. We shall see how big they get. The green beans bloomed again, and I will have another picking from them within a day or two. The purple-hulled cowpeas also put on a bumper crop, and those may need 3 or 4 days yet before picking, but both of these lovelies will be fresh veggie for dinner soon. Just a little bit. They didn't put on that much, but they did bloom again. I successfully grew a small batch of red onions. They are currently in the drying process and will be ready soon. There are a few white onions still out in the garden, but they do not look like they are going to get very big. Some of the tops are already dying off, and that means they've grown all they're going to this time around. I probably need to fertilize them more to get bigger onions. From even the red onions, I think if I'd have fertilized them more, I would have gotten bigger onions. So next year. Now let's talk about those tomatoes. The tomato row is set up with tomato cages that were tied to rebar every few feet. And then there's a string between the rebars that kind of makeshift would hold all of those cages up so they didn't fall over. Well, the sheer amount of tomatoes on the plants soon pulled that apparatus down, just flattened it, the whole fence fell down. And then yesterday Scott went out there and tried to shore up the row. And many of the plants were laying on the ground, having broken down the makeshift trellis completely, as I said. And then I went out there last night to pick some tomatoes and found some of the cages fell over yet again, even after he had shored them up again. I just need to pick and pick and pick to lighten the load on the plants, and that'll help them stay upright. The problem with that is I'm running out of space to ripen them. I'm okay with picking my tomatoes just as they begin to turn, once they're yellow or orange, and there are a lot of them out there. I could thin out a lot of tomatoes. Just as they begin to turn, once they're like yellow or orange, I bring them in, else the raccoon will get the results of all my fine work. I bring them in and put them on the shelves I used in the spring to start the tomatoes and peppers indoors. So you start them indoors to make large enough plants so that you can plant them out in the garden at the proper time. And then those shelves are empty until this time of year when they fill up again with the fruits, literally fruits of my labor. And the shelves are right now filled with tomato fruits and a few peppers. I have 4 shelves currently full. There are also 2 5-gallon buckets sitting in my kitchen at this very minute, waiting for me to finish this podcast and return to them. These are red and ripe and ready to be turned into tomato sauce. So let me talk about tomato sauce. Here's my process for making it. It's fairly easy as long as you have the proper equipment. And the main thing is having a food mill. I start with cleaning up the tomatoes, taking out the cores and then quartering them. I cut off any bad spots, take out the cores, and then just cut them up into, pieces, 2-3-inch quarter pieces, skins, seeds, everything. I put them in a pot and start heating it up very slowly on the stove. You don't want them to burn and stick. In fact, because I'm using paste tomatoes, I might put just a little bit of water, just a little bit, because the purpose of having paste tomatoes is not having so much water, but just on the very bottom, so that as they're cooking, the moisture will cook out of them, and they'll be thick and soupy, and they'll be okay and it won't burn. Now, once they're cooked, it's time to get the seeds and skins out. And I have a KitchenAid mixer that has a lot of nifty attachments, and one of my favorites is that food mill that I mentioned. It's a little interesting to set it up, but once it is set up, all I have to do is turn it on, start dipping the cooked tomatoes out of the pot, put them into the hopper. There's a little plunger where you can push them down in there, and then the seeds and the skins get compressed down and they all come out in one place, and then the juice and the pulp come out in another place. And then I'll usually take all of the waste, the seeds and the skin waste, and run all of that through a second time to get the most pulp and juice possible. And once I have the pulp and the juice, it's a matter of cooking it down to the desired thickness, sauce thickness, and then start the canning process. And sometimes this is a 2-day project. Like today is one of those times. Likely I will only get the tomatoes cleaned up and cut up, put them in a bowl or a pot, and just put them in the refrigerator overnight. And then tomorrow will be cooking them the first time, separating the seeds and the skins, and then once I get the pulp and the juice, cooking it down to the desired thickness, and finally canning. Now, canning the sauce is as easy as dipping the thickened sauce into sterilized jars. Clean the rims up, put the 2-piece lids on, put them in a water bath canner, 15 or 20 minutes. Zip, zam, zowie. It's done. What do you think? Are you ready to give it a try? I don't do videos, only audio, but I can recommend finding a YouTube video or 2 to get the details of how canning is done. And one day in the future, I will have a class or 2 here on the homestead on canning. I hope to meet some of you when that day arrives. Final thoughts. That is today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed the donkey story. They truly are blessed creatures. We love them so much. The quail are such a blessing. And yes, the sheep, lambs, goats, and cows are a blessing as well. Our life here is full. There is always so much to do, and every bit of it is a blessing. Some things are a bit onerous, like all of the cleaning. We're always cleaning something. And the quail and the cow waste smells something awful. But when taken in context with everything else, you just can't beat the joy of living every day in the presence of God's creation. Being able to grow our own food and preserve it for the winter is also fulfilling. It gives us a security that I would not give up for anything in the world, especially in these days of uncertainty at the grocery store. And I hope I've inspired you to try a bit of self-sufficiency for yourself. You don't need a big place. A few plants in pots on your apartment balcony can provide a similar experience. Grow a few peppers and tomatoes. You'll be glad you did. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hop over to Apple Podcasts, subscribe, give me a 5-star rating and a review. Also, please, please, please share this with any friends or family who might be interested in this type of content. That is the best thing you can do to help this show grow. Thank you so much for stopping by the homestead. And until next time, may God fill your life with grace and peace.